Okay, we will call this regular council meeting to order for October 28th. It's 3 p.m. and I will ask Councillor Maceras to please read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. The town of Innisfil acknowledges that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kainai, Piikani, Siksika, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and Stoney Nakoda First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3, within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on.
All right, thank you. And we'll move on to 2.1, where we'll have a swearing in of Deputy Mayor Councillor Bates. And thank you to Councillor Hystad for his last 4 months in that role. So I'll just ask Councillor Bates to please come up. Raise your right hand, please. I don't know if people can hear this or not online, but I, Gavin Bates.
I, Gavin Bates.
Do swear that I will diligently.
Do swear that I will diligently.
Faithfully and to the best of my ability.
Faithfully and to the best of my ability.
Execute according to law.
Execute according to law.
The office of Deputy Mayor.
The office of Deputy Mayor.
For the town of Innisfil, so help me God.
For the town of Innisfil, so help me God.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 3.1. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? No. Could I please have someone make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Councillor Dunham.
Yeah, Barkley, I'll move the agenda as presented.
Perfect, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. And we'll move on to 4.1, the regular council meeting minutes for October 15th. When somebody's ready, please make a motion to accept those. Councillor Hystad.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from October 15th.
Thank you. Any changes to them? See nothing. All in favor? Okay, and then 4.2, the agenda priorities meeting for October 21st. Councillor Bates.
I'll move the agenda and priority meeting minutes.
Okay, thank you. Any changes? Nothing. All in favor? All right, carried. So we're going to move on to 5.1. We're going to have 2 public hearings today. The first one, I'll just give you a little bit of an overview. We'll open the public hearing and then we'll kind of go through the process. But I now declare the public hearing relating to Bylaw 1470A81 open. The order of the public hearing will be the introduction of the bylaw by Manager Shaw. And then we'll call to hear from anyone who is in support of the bylaw. And then I will call to hear from anyone who is in opposition to the bylaw. So welcome, Manager Shaw. We'll let you get started.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this first item deals with municipal land north of 42nd Street, east of Highway 54, across from the South Industrial Park. To the north of this land, you have vacant land, and to the east, you have open space. So this bylaw seeks to change the zoning from highway commercial to direct control district. So we're proposing to amend the land use zoning of a 3-acre parcel to that direct control district. The intent is to allow council to make decisions respecting development proposals on this property in the future. So the property is currently vacant and is suitable for development. We have begun work with the engineering consultant to undertake engineering and subdivision work on this parcel to create a road connecting it to 42nd Street and to create 2 new parcels. One of the new parcels on the east side of the proposed road is expected to be developed as a 4-story residential building. The commercial component is envisioned to serve surrounding residents, workers from the nearby industrial properties, Bella Vista, the town's recreational amenities to the east, and motorists along Highway 54. So the next slide shows you the progress of the land history from when we first had GIS from 2007 until now. So throughout all of those years, the land has remained vacant. Subdivision of the land occurred back in 2015 when the application was approved. And then in 2018, you had a subdivision plan that was registered at Land Titles. And so what you have today is the present configuration, if you want. So the area outlined in bold there is part of the land that we're talking about today. So as I mentioned before, a 3-acre block of land which was created, no direct access to Highway 54 and only to 42nd Street. Over the years, there have been a number of land use zonings on the property dating back to 1980. You can see that the land was originally zoned as industrial. Then in 94, you had reserved for future development as well as public space. And then in 2015, you had the most significant land use change in which the bylaw changed it to the present zoning of highway commercial. And so as you look at the next slide here, you can see the land that is under consideration. Again, it's to allow council to have control of decision-making in this area of the community. So the proposal is to mix two uses, commercial and residential, and to allow a number of different land uses within this block of land. So the next slide shows you the number of uses that can be accommodated within the DCD district, much more so in terms of what is available under the current highway commercial designation. And so from the statutory planning framework perspective, the land is designated as commercial under the current municipal development plan. The Napoleon Lake Area Structure Plan designates the subject property as commercial as well. The idea was to promote the development of a commercial area at the junction of Highway 54 and 42nd Street to serve the commercial needs of residents while at the same time being accessible to highway traffic. When we look at the council resolution from 1998, what it had identified was that the area between the existing Napoleon Lake subdivision and 61st Avenue remain an open space, with the exception of a 2-acre commercial parcel at the intersection of 42A Street and 61st Avenue. So since 1958 or 1968 or 1998 resolution, Highway 54 has been fully designed and constructed. It has been determined that the 61st Avenue extension north of 42nd Street would not occur. The 1998 Municipal Development Plan identified the land as commercial. The Napoleon Lake Area Structure Plan identified it as commercial. The land use bylaw in 94 showed the property as reserved for future development district and public services. And then finally, the bylaw that I just showed you there in 2015 amended the zoning of this property to highway commercial district. The town has determined expansion to the west is appropriate, and Innisfil does continue to grow and attract more businesses. Over the years, there's been a number of proposals on the property ranging from 2014 until now. And so this particular slide does show you the proposals that have occurred on the property. The latest iteration showing the residential on the east side of the roadway in the middle, and then commercial on the west side of that road. And so the next slide will show you in terms of what is envisioned. A gas bar perhaps with convenience store on the east side, mixed-use development, commercial building on the east side, and then a commercial standalone building on the east side as well. And as I indicated, that residential apartment building on the west side. And so the development concept is a preliminary design concept and is subject to change depending upon market conditions and development trends. The subject property is envisioned to develop in the following manner: a gas station and convenience store, commercial building either for a major retailer or for several smaller businesses with residential above, screening between commercial and residential uses, connection to the town's trail network, and as I indicated before, the 4-story apartment building on the east side. So in terms of public engagement, there have been a number of engagement sessions throughout the years. The most recent one was conducted in September of this year. At that open house, there were about 40 residents who signed a sign-in sheet, but there was an estimated 20 to 30 who did not. And as well, there were others who were not able to access the location because of overcrowding. Most attendees were interested in the residential development to the north of this property. However, there were a few whose homes back onto the subject property who expressed concerns about the development of a 4-story apartment building at this location, citing loss of views, sun shadow, decrease in property values, etc. And so we also had an online survey. The online survey was conducted during the months of September to October. There were a total of 84 respondents to the survey in total. As well, we had newspaper advertisements in October 8th, 15th, and 22nd editions of the Albertan, and there was also a direct mail out to approximately 157 residents. At this time, there were no responses to this mail out prior to making this presentation. So our summary comments are that there have been a history of proposals for this development for this property oriented to commercial development beginning in 2014. Subdivision approval and land use bylaw amendments in 2015 focused on creating a property that could accommodate commercial uses at this location. The property is ideally situated for commercial development because of its proximity to a provincial highway, as well as the major collector roadway. The Direct Control District grants council increased decision-making abilities on the property regarding the type of development it wants to see happen in this area of the community. The proposed development of a 4-story apartment building has been located to minimize as much as possible negative impacts on adjacent residential properties. And finally, administration is recommending that council considers and approves second and third readings of the bylaw. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
All right, thank you very much, Manager Shaw. So we'll move forward. Is there anyone here who supports this bylaw and wishes to speak to it? If you do, please come forward. See none. Is there anyone who opposes the bylaw and wishes to speak to it? Come on up if you'd like to speak. And just please state your name.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Belle Clark, and my address is 6034 44th Street Crescent. I live right across the street from this green space. My husband and I are opposed to the type of residential being proposed. Rental properties will increase the population density of the neighborhood, thusly increasing the traffic and the noise, not to mention becoming a parking nightmare. We are concerned how the rental properties will impact the property values. One only has to drive south of Tim Hortons or the Dairy Queen to see what rental properties can do to a neighborhood. As for the proposed commercial, again, we are concerned about the increase in traffic and noise. I imagine, like most businesses, they will have deliveries, and depending on the type of business, could have deliveries made by semi-trucks. We, as it is in this area, hear the trucks using engine retarder brakes at all hours of the day and night. And with this added commercial, this problem will only increase. A few years ago, the town paid a firm for an evaluation of the town. One of the remarks that came back was that Innisfail looks like a budget town. So if 2 of our entrances to our town consist of fast food places, gas stations, and now rental properties at the Highway 54 entrance, how does that help encourage visitors to explore the rest of the town? How does this keep us from continuing to look like a budget town? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else would like to come up? No? Okay, thanks. Just state your name, please.
Sorry. I'll just talk briefly on this one as I'm mainly here for the other one. Me and my brother's here with me today. We just moved into town 2 weeks ago. We reside at 6030 44th Street Crescent. We moved from Calgary. We were living in Calgary. We bought our first home 3 years ago, and we were living in a duplex with apartments kind of behind us. And we're just really concerned about this new development because we kind of moved here specifically for the appeal of having more space, having a quieter section of the town. And then these 2 proposals kind of put us right back at the same place where there's duplexes right by us with apartments. Now I understand we're just talking about the one right now. The main thing that I'm worried about is at our old house, we were duplexes with apartments back about a block away. All of the parking flooded through to our section from the apartments. And that's actually one of the reasons why we moved, because my brother, he has a big truck and a trailer, and we could actually never park in our cul-de-sac because there just wasn't enough room to maneuver the truck and everything. But the other main thing that we're worried about is crime. When I was about 12, my parents had their house broken into, and when I was about 17, at my other job, I was robbed at gunpoint when leaving. And when we moved to this other house with the apartments and everything, having that different demographic where there's people there renting for quite a significant amount cheaper than obviously what we're buying the house for. We had issues with people spray painting symbols and words on our garages in the back alley. We had people kicking the trash cans over and everything in the back alley. We've only been here for 2 weeks, and I'm so worried about security that I've already installed 8 CCTV cameras around the house. And that's just for peace of mind because I'm a bit more worried than the normal person. But I'm just worried that having this apartment building with obviously like people moving in and out of different walks of life, how that's going to affect the crime in the area, and then as well the parking, like I said earlier. So I'll speak a bit more on that when we talk about the other bylaw, but I just thought I'd give my 2 cents.
May I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you think that renters are bad people?
Well, I'm not necessarily saying that, but I'm just, when I first moved into my house, so me and my brother live together now, but for the first year when we were living in the old house, I actually had my best friend live with me as a renter. And you could see the difference of how he took care of the place versus me with an ownership stake in the property. He scratched the hardwood floors quite significantly, dented the wall. Our neighbors would complain about parking, and they would say, you need to only park in front of your house. And this was because it was already an issue already. And I told him, hey, like, I know it's hard to park in front of our house because we're on the end of the cul-de-sac and it's curved. Please just try. I know it takes an extra minute to park. Please park in front of our house. And his response was, I don't care about being neighborly. Anyone's allowed to park on the street. It's legal. If I want to park in front of their house, I will. And I'm just saying that as an example of when there's people with ownership positions and then there's people who are renting and see it maybe as a short-term solution. If you're renting and you only plan to stay somewhere for a year and a half, you don't necessarily care about how the neighborhood's going to end up or treating people with respect in the neighborhood, that kind of stuff. Versus right now, as it is, you do have that sort of feel. I met both my neighbors just this week when I moved in, and we're getting along really good. I really like being nice with everyone. I actually run a business where I do home decor and everything, and whenever I move into a new neighborhood, I give my neighbors home decor stuff because I really do value that relationship. And all I'm saying is I am a bit more worried about how the dynamic's going to change, and crime, like I was saying, at my old house, people are spray painting the garages, people are knocking over the bins, and I'll talk a bit more about it, and if you have any other further questions.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
For the record, could I get,
Oh, I'm sorry, can we get your name? Sorry, missed that part.
Jordan Bass?
Thanks, Jordan. Okay. Welcome.
Sheldon Stotts, 4316 60A Avenue Crescent. Okay, we went through this several years ago about putting in a gas station, all that. When you have a gas station on the highway, you are going to attract long distance truckers. And unfortunately with that, you're going to also attract drugs and prostitution. That's the one thing we don't need in the neighborhood. And by putting that there, and especially the apartment block right next to it, that's what you're going to get. Lots of it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else want to speak against? All right, are there any further comments from administration? No? And does council have any further comments or any questions for anybody? No? Okay, and if not, I will accept a motion then to please close the first public hearing.
Mayor
Councillor
Barclay,
Wong?
I would move to close the first public hearing.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. And we will open the second public hearing. So that's relating to Bylaw 1470A83. So again, administration will introduce the bylaw, and then we will call to hear from anyone who supports, and then we'll call to hear anyone who opposes.
Mayor and council, you have a bylaw before you that seeks to amend land use districts, so residential single-family district, the R1B, to residential medium-density district, R2, residential single-family district, R1B, to residential multifamily district, R3, and the residential single-family district, R1C, to residential multifamily district, R3. And finally, the public use district to residential multifamily district. So the town is proposing to amend this land, approximately 9 acres in area between 42nd Street and 44th Street Crescent. So it's an area which is currently vacant at this time. It's under current designation as residential single-family district, the R1B, the residential single-family district, R1C, and public space. The R1B district is intended to support single detached dwellings on the south side of 44th Street Crescent, similar in width to those found on the north side of the street. R2 district accommodates single detached dwellings and duplexes as permitted uses, while allowing for row housing, stacked row housing, and secondary suites as discretionary uses. In this concept is envisioned to have detached dwellings and duplexes that could include secondary suites. The R3 district accommodates a wide range of multi-unit development, ranging from row housing to apartment buildings. In this concept, row housing is anticipated to be located along the extension of 60B Avenue Crescent and would serve as a buffer from the commercial development. So this development proposal has been prepared in-house using a shared street concept. The town has begun working with an engineering consultant on the property. With respect to the land history, this property has remained vacant for many years now, and the next couple of slides show you from 2007 until 2024 that the land has remained vacant. The subdivision of the land, it resulted from a consolidation of the northwest quarter, section 203528, west of the 4th, and part of a road allowance. The plan was registered in 1991, containing approximately 43 acres or so. And so the area that's under consideration is 9 acres of that 43 acres. If we look at the land use zoning, you can see that there was HWY-C as well as reserved for future development back in 1980. In 94, you had more of a definition provided in terms of what type of land use was going to occur within this property. And so we see the R1C, the R1B, as well as the public use district. And then finally, by 2009, the current land use bylaw, you see that these land uses have been demarcated as public use, the R1B and the R1C. And so that's what we're dealing with today, are these residential districts. And so what is envisioned is that you'll have a strip of R1B along the top of the parcel there, as shown in the diagram. You'll then have R2, the R2 district, and then R3 before you have that direct control district that we talked about earlier today. So from regards to the statutory planning framework, it currently shows it as being residential and open space. And this was the MDP that was adopted back in 1998. The Napoleon Lake Area Structure Plan designates the property as residential and open space as well. When we look at the existing inventory of single detached housing as of October 24th, 2024, in the Hazelwood subdivision, we have 6 R1B lots and 1 R2 lot. In Napoleon Meadows, we don't have any lots. Bella Vista, R1C, we have 10 lots. R1N, 4 lots. And the R2 lots, we have 8 lots altogether. So a limited number of subdivided and service single detached housing available in the community at this time. And then looking again at the council resolution from 1998, in addition to what I had indicated earlier, we know that from the 2023 Housing Needs Assessment Report, we have a shortage of 27 single and semi-detached dwellings in 2023, and we'll need 28 to 31 dwelling units between 2026 and 2031. The report also showed that there was a shortage of 31 dwelling units in the form of apartments, row housing, and movable dwellings in 2023, and a need to have between 12 to 13 dwellings in these types of housing between 2026 and 2031. So what you see proposed here is a total number of 58 dwelling units, combined with the possibility of having 13 carriage homes. Now, the design concept may change once detailed engineering is conducted on the site. However, this was what we had come up with from the standpoint of what the land could sustain. With respect to the public engagement, again, as before, we had the September 2024 open house. We also had an online survey, which was conducted during the months of September and October, a total of 84 responses. We had advertised in the Albertan on October 8th, 15th, and 22nd, and we had that direct mail out to 157 properties or so. So the online survey itself consisted of 4 questions. The responses will be consolidated into a public engagement report. I had a quick look at the responses to question 1, and the responses that you see here are those that encapsulate what the majority feeling was with respect to do you think the proposed concept is a good use of this land? Why and why not? So in summary, we know that there have been a history of proposals for this property. Our statutory plan framework and land use bylaw identified the area to be developed in some form of residential. We know that we need additional single detached lots available in the near future. Using row housing as a way to address the missing middle in Innisfail, as this is a product that is generally not seen in the community. Our administration is recommending that council considers and approves second and third readings of this bylaw. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Manager Shaw. So I will ask if there's anyone who supports the bylaw and wishes to speak, please come forward. Coming up, please state your name.
Hello, my name is Susan Pattery, and I've been a resident in this community since the mid-'80s, and our home was along 54th Ave, and when I would stand up on that berm, I would see farmland. So there was hay usually baled and things like that. And one of the things that I've seen, living in and out of this community is now when I look up on that berm, I see a really well thought out area, a really nice area for walking, and I see so many people enjoying the trails. And I really feel like this community hasn't had a lot of economic growth, like really in the time that I've been here since the mid-'80s, but now in the province of Alberta, we've got so many people moving into this province as well as people coming from the city. And I welcome the growth. I am not concerned about security. I'm not concerned about graffiti. I really feel like the direction this town really needs to go is finding lots for people. I have a few kids that'll be wanting to settle down and look for homes to live in. And when they do, I want them to have options. So creating single family dwellings, creating apartment units, creating residences for people to come and live and enjoy this wonderful community that we do have. So I'm very pro for it, and I look forward to growth and seeing many more families come and settle in this community. So.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come up and speak in favor? Okay, then I'll ask for anyone to come up who opposes the bylaw. Yep, come on up. State your name again, if that's okay, please.
Jordan Bass. Here, sorry. So in regards to this proposal specifically, I just want to talk a bit about kind of our decision to get this house. So we bought our house for $482,000 just 2 weeks ago, and we actually moved from Calgary and sold our duplex for about $600,000. The whole idea of moving to Innisfail, and I think also what most people will find the appeal to moving to Innisfail is you get a smaller town feel, quieter neighborhoods, bigger houses for cheaper. And once I saw this bill in the mail, it kind of destroyed kind of everything that I hoped to receive in this town. At our last duplex, we had a traffic circle right outside of our house, and you open the window to get fresh air at night, and all you hear are cars. Same thing, worried about crime and traffic and everything I touched on before. Now, this proposal specifically actually affects my house in particular, because if you look at the road that they're trying to add with the surecanes, it's actually right in front of my garage. So we're right there on 44th Street Crescent, in front of the main road. And I'm just really concerned that we move out of the big town because we want the small town living with quieter neighborhoods and everything like that. And we get rid of the traffic circle, and we can open the window, and it's super quiet at night and peaceful. And once this is built, we're going to be left with the same thing again. We're going to be getting headlights directly from that road hitting our windows when we're trying to sleep. We're going to be getting the noise of people coming in and out throughout night and whatnot. And the main thing I kind of wanted to just reiterate is I feel like Innisfail has a really strong pull to try to use that as what they bring new residents in with. This is, you get a smaller town feel, bigger houses, quieter areas for less money. And I think that's why most people are going to maybe transition from, let's say, Calgary. Calgary's, the prices have gone up so much in the last 3 years. So many people are looking to kind of transition, find something a bit cheaper, get more bang for your buck in these quieter neighborhoods. And the one thing I'm just really worried about is if we do this with the duplexes and the laneway suites and everything, that's no longer going to be an appeal for this area of Innisfail at least. And I took a really big risk when I moved here because my parents, they actually didn't want me to move. We bought for $430,000 our duplex, and within 3 years it went up to $600,000. And they were saying, why would you move out of Calgary? It's going to keep appreciating like tremendously. And the reason we moved and we took a risk on Innisfail is because even though we knew we wouldn't get as much appreciation here, we wanted to take a risk for that different kind of living. And now if this goes through, we're basically left with the same thing we were left with before. But now we're not getting the appreciation of Calgary. And I just feel we would actually lose out in general and be left with my parents being right. Now, I did want to just make specific mention on specific things. I just have a couple notes here. Before at the other house, we were in a duplex with apartments behind us. I see this as even more kind of detrimental because not only do you have the duplexes and the apartments and the row houses, you also have the laneway suites. And I was looking at the online, they were talking 2 parking spaces for the duplexes, but only 1 additional parking space for the laneway suite. I really feel with the laneway suites, most people are going to have more than 1 car. Let's say you're living there with a girlfriend, let's say you invite friends over, and I just know from previous experiences, I had a duplex beside apartments and we couldn't find any parking. It's going to be the same thing here, but worse because there's duplexes, laneway suites, and then apartments. And then I just wanted to talk specifically about, so in the frequently asked questions, they said, will these homes negatively impact my property value? And the answer was, in general, new development increases home value in the long term because new development usually means more opportunities to enrich the community. And while I don't disagree with that, right now this parcel is zoned for residential. If you were to develop that area as just residential single-family homes and compare it to a developed area with the duplexes, laneway suites, and apartments, the difference will be that this plan versus the residential zoning will lower the property values compared to if it was developed with residential houses, single-family homes. So even though the property value may go up with development, if it was just developed as is with the residential designation, single-family homes, it would appreciate more. And then one more thing, can we regulate if these homes will be owned or rented? And you guys say, the town uses its land use bylaw to regulate the use of the land and not the users of this land. Hence, the town does not regulate its users in any area in the town. And I just wanted to make a note that effectively by putting this through, you are effectively raising the green flag for renters to come, because although some of these laneway suites may be used for, let's say, an elderly family member or maybe a son who wants more space, most of these in their lifetime will be rented out. They're a small, kind of like an apartment above the garage, and even if, let's say, it's rented out to a son or a family member for a couple years, eventually at some point in its life when those family members move on, they will be rented out. I don't think most people are going to keep them empty when you have that on your property that could be generating revenue. And I just wanted to make note that you guys say you can't regulate what will be rented or what will be owned, but effectively by making these units that are small and cheaper, you are raising the green flag for it to be rented. And I just want to reiterate what I said previously. I'm concerned about taking away the small town quiet feel. I'm concerned about security, and I'm concerned about the parking as well. And I risked a lot to move to Innisfail, and I just hope you guys can kind of see that that's the appeal of the town and try to keep it that way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to come up?
Sheldon Stotts, 4316 60A Avenue Crescent. Okay, first off, to have the meeting at 3 p.m. is pretty low and underhanded, I think, as most people can't come here because they have to work. Those on day shift can't come here, and those who are on evening shift are on their way to work already, so they can't come here. I don't think that's right. It may be within the written law, but I don't think it meets the meaning of the law or the proper understanding. Okay, this area, when I moved here, this area was promised to be an open area forever. People paid extra for the lots on the border, on the edge there, for that privilege. They said, but the town council fails to heed the promise. Instead, they say they don't have to follow the previous council's promises, which includes their own if they're ever re-elected. If I was to lie to you, it's a felony, but you lie to me, it's politics. By putting high-density housing, which is what you're putting in there, in an area that is the exact opposite, where single-home dwellings, it's going to drop our real property value taxes down. Maybe not the town taxes or values for our taxes. Our taxes will probably stay the same or go up. At the open house, you also showed the layout of the development where each one's going to have a very small yard and a small house or whatever you want to call it at the back. Okay, that's going to be ending up being rented out to low-income individuals such as druggies, prostitutes, etc. Now, some of these may be nice people, but this is not good for a neighborhood. Basically, what you're going to end up doing is putting a slum in our neighborhood. Now, I don't think you guys would do that in your own backyard. Okay, as for, they said there is no lots available in Napoleon Meadows. I just drove by there, there's at least 3 that are still have sale signs up, so you still have lots and lots of room out at Hazelwood Estate area for development there. Most of the people have, as a matter of fact, the people that live in Napoleon Meadows, I noticed almost all of them move out within 2 years and move on. Why? Because if you take a look at their backyards, you can't even play ball with your son out in the backyard. They're just too small. That's one of the reasons most people moved to Innisfail. That was the reason I moved to Innisfail. I had a nice sized yard. That's what people want. People want to move in and have a yard that they can go out and do something in, not just a yard that they can look at. Yeah, and like I said, they're very small yards, and you're going to be putting 2 houses basically on one small lot. That's high density. I don't care what you say, that's high density. Now, and developers, well, they only care about one thing, profit. And it seems like that is what the council wants too, is just profit. As for the so-called community amenities, you'll still see, you still want to develop a strip mall and another gas station, as it seems. And once you finalize the plans, this means that you're AD1, you can do whatever you want when you want. You already had crews out on the 18th of October measuring out the land and doing surveys. So that probably means you don't care what we say, you're going to go ahead and do this anyways. I think this proves that in Canada, we don't vote for people who are supposed to represent us. We're voting for our dictators because they don't care what the people want. They do what they want. If you want to keep growing in Innisfail, we're eventually going to become a subdivision of Red Deer. And that's not the reason why people are moving here. If people want small homes and small yards with lots of amenities, they're going to move to Red Deer, guaranteed, not here. You also built a new solar farm. Did that do anything for the town? No. It put money in the town coffers, but did it lower our property taxes? No. Did it lower our connection fees? No. Did it lower our electric bills? No. It just put money in the town coffers so you can do with it as you please. Every couple of years, you keep wanting to push development on the Napoleon South area, and every time the people have told you no. That's why the people that could make it, that's why they're here. Only one person voted for it. Everybody else is against it. They may not want to stand up and say anything, but that's why they're here. Seems the only time that people actually care to what the people, us regular people, say is come election time. And then they tell us this year's selection of lies. because they never seem to do what they promise to do anyways. In closing, that's why I say, why don't you put your oligarchy wants aside and do what was promised, what the people paid for and what the people want.
Right, thank you. And just to address the time of day, this is when we have held council meetings since, I don't know, 2019 likely, so we have to have the public hearing within a council meeting. So that's why we're doing this at 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Like I said, most people can't make it then. And when you put a piece, like if they put a piece of paper on your computer, it's really easy for you to flash by it.
Thank you.
It doesn't have the same impact as seeing somebody stand before you with a face.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to come forward? Please state your name, please.
Cody Bass. I'm not one for much talking in public and whatnot, and I'm not probably the best speaker, but there's just a few things I want to talk about. Just to give you guys a sense of what me and my brother went through, we probably looked at close to 100 houses when we were thinking of selling ours and buying another one, and I think that property was perfect from us because we learned from it what we want, what are some good benefits and disadvantages to what we had. And just to give you a sense, we probably looked at 100 houses all across Alberta, from Lethbridge to Brooks, in Calgary, Airdrie, Red Deer, drove up a bunch to Edmonton. You know, and me and my brother, we both run businesses. I actually have two businesses, a pressure washing business and a court facility building construction business. And I guess what it all comes down to is when we looked at all these properties all across Alberta, we see, especially in Calgary, there's a lot of high density projects popping up all over the place. You know, when I went to Edmonton, we were looking at a lot of houses in multi-family areas, and they're pretty cheap houses up in Edmonton for actually really nice houses. But again, it's a lot of disadvantages to the high density housing is the parking's a huge one. You know, we went up to Edmonton, we're looking at these multi-family residents, and I kid you not, there's not a single place to park, and you're looking at houses to buy. Well, where am I gonna park? Just trying to think of some of these other points I was thinking of. You know, where we're currently staying, it was duplexes, and for parking there it was really horrendous. And when I look here at the proposal, it's not only duplexes, but those laneway suites my brother was talking about. So I can't even imagine having suites, laneway suites, in addition with the duplexes, how people are gonna be able to park, or where people are gonna have to park and then walk to their residences. You know, out of all the places we looked at, like, we chose Innisfail, and like, I think you guys should be proud of that. Like, the amount of, or the benefits to us that we saw here, being a quieter town. Like, me and my brother being here 2 weeks, we're just at awe. And we step out our backyard, you can see the stars. There's not a bunch of light pollution, and it's just so quiet, so peaceful. Like, that's one of the things that brought us here. And then also specifically just lot sizes. Like, you know, all we're seeing nowadays is these high density projects coming up, and you look at some of these backyards, especially in Calgary, and it's like you have 2 meters of yard before your garage. And like, that's something that brought us here, is the lot sizes, the peace and quiet, the low light pollution. You know, I think there's a lot of good things that you guys have going in Innisfail by not having a lot of high density housing. And I don't know, just as two business owners, like I could have gone up, lived in Edmonton, and it would have worked a lot better for my business. I would have had a lot more opportunities up there. Gas is a lot cheaper. But I chose here because of the style of living that Innisfail can provide us. So just me personally, you know, that's what brought me here, and I'd hate to see the reasons that brought me here prevent other people from coming and thinking this would be a nice place to live. Like, that's what I really think, you know, you guys have going. And just to really reiterate the fact is we spent months looking at houses, probably close to 100 houses all across Alberta. And to land here, I think really says something about the community. And personally, I just don't want to see that reason for why we moved here go away. I think, especially nowadays with the housing issues across our country, that I just wouldn't want other people to look away from those reasons of coming here is what I think.
So can I ask you a few questions?
Yeah.
And thank you for moving here and choosing Innisfail for sure. So, well, I'm so old. When I grew up here, there was nothing west of the high school.
Yeah.
And nothing south of 39th Street, and nothing north of probably 56th Street. So the town has grown. It was probably 2,300 people. Now it's around 8,000. But this, like when you moved in, this was zoned residential.
Yeah.
So, you know, what we're looking at right now, I guess we could categorize it as a bit of a housing crisis. I know as today there's 18 houses for sale in Innisfail. There's 7 that are under $430,000. So we have a challenge in front of us trying to keep young people here. We have a challenge for our employers trying to hire people. We have probably even staff at the town of Innisfail that can't find a place to live here. We haven't had a rental building built in this town probably since the 1980s. So, you know, we've been kind of looking at ideas. We have some developers that are certainly stalled out. They're not moving forward. And I guess that's kind of why we're looking at something for here. And the laneway homes, we have a demographic in this town that is very different from Alberta as a whole. Probably almost 25% of our residents are over 65, so they may want to downsize and be close to families, so they live in the laneway suite and in the yard. But we're losing people all the time to other communities because we don't have housing across that housing spectrum for them. We have people that want to downsize, older adults, we have nothing. Young people want to move in, or kids and grandkids of people that live here want to stay here, they can't find anything. So that's the challenge that's in front of us right now. And lot shrink, again, going back many, many years, you would see houses in the core of this community that are probably 75 by 150 foot lots, 190 foot lots. We're now seeing 33 by 110 in new developments. So, you know, that density has been increasing, and I would say a lot of it's around affordability because, you know, a new house right now is probably $600,000 in Innisfail for brand new. So that's what we're kind of struggling with. So I know that there was a development to go on this property a few years ago. It was to be a gated community for probably 50, 55 plus, and it didn't go forward either. And I'm wondering how many people now are kind of wishing it was there because they're now moving into Red Deer. So anyway, you know, communities do grow. We hear what you're saying as well and appreciate your comments, and for you and your brother stepping up and speaking to us in a respectful manner today. I thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I do appreciate what you're saying too, and you know, growth is always, it is a good thing. And I guess just the one comment to me is, you know, there's cheap housing in a lot of places for renting and whatnot with these high density residential areas being built pretty much across the country at mass speeds, I'd say. But again, just the one thing that I really do appreciate about this town is the feel of it, the nice sized lots, And I just think, you know, by doing the high density, I think will further persuade people to leave than just, you know, if it was just residential, like how it's currently zoned, you know, I think that's perfect, because again, that's what brought us here, is the nice sized lots, the nice houses, and the nice feel of the town. And I just don't want to see that get removed. And yes, it may be cheaper for housing. You can get a lot of rentals and whatnot. But again, for growth wise, I think, especially for long-term community members, I think it would just be better to leave it as residential instead of rezoning it. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Heisted?
Yeah, just listening past 30 minutes or so, I just want to thank the speakers first off. I've been living here since 1986. We had 5,600 residents. Today, I'm 53 years old. It's barely 8,000 people. I do believe the aesthetics of small town life and a community is why we're here. But I believe Mayor Jean said it best. There's young people, there's staff, there's people that, I see it every day. I walk this town probably 10 kilometers or more a day. People leave this community to drive elsewhere. They're going to Black Falls, they're going to Penhold, they're going to Red Deer, they're going to Carstairs, they're going to Olds. We have, one of our largest employers is the Bowden Institution. 500 people live there, or work there. Actually, then the 500 live there too. So, sorry about that, shouldn't joke around. But we have people that move to Airdrie, live out of Calgary. They don't even, at one time there was a lot of that staff that would actually live in our community. We don't have appropriate housing for this area, and especially in our community. And that's what I've seen in this role. This is my second time coming back, 8-year break. I was a guy that sat on council and we didn't put the gated community through. And I can tell you now, I regret that decision behind that area. This piece of property was never a green space. There's no dog park, there's no community gardens or anything like that for the last 20, 25 years. It is a space that can be used wisely. We have ton of green space in this community, and I believe this is, you know, for me in this position, I regret that decision, not the decision that we didn't make in the past. So that's what I wanted to say to everybody today, and this is where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome.
Mayor, councillors.
Please just state your name.
Purcell, 6049 47th Street. I think the first thing I'd like to talk about is the high density is number one. I mean, we do have lots that are for sale that are regular houses. I know there's not a lot in town. However, high density, I was just down to Calgary and I was just down to Airdrie. I couldn't find a place to park my vehicle whatsoever. So I think the biggest thing is parking is going to be an area without that. Has there been a traffic study done on what the population will do with the high density housing there? Has there been?
Not that I'm aware of.
So typically our traffic studies, so they are related to the traffic moving out of the neighborhood. So that has been looked at for the commercial area and the impact on Highway 54, but again, not into the existing residential.
See, to me, I'm not worried about the traffic on 54. I think that intersection actually needs to be changed because there's been several accidents, but they've lowered the speed. But that's another issue, which is going to cause more problems for that whole area. There should be a lane through there with my previous experience as an officer for over 30 years. But there hasn't been a traffic study done in the town for itself. And everybody in the back room here, I haven't heard one person say, yes, we want high density housing here. Has there been anybody said that? I'm sorry I missed it. I was at a doctor's appointment and didn't get here in time. There was one person, and I believe that we have 25 or 30 people saying no, and we all live in the area. Does any councilors live close by? Not one.
I do. I do. I live right around the corner from there, 47th Street. That's my neighborhood.
And you want high density beside your house?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
You're fine with it?
Because this is a concept.
Okay.
There you go. That's
Okay,
where,
that's a
I get it.
counselor that wants it, and he's right beside it. Okay.
I live here.
Okay, I've
40
lived
years.
here for 25 years.
40 years.
There isn't, two people now are in the room that are saying, yes, we want this. That, I don't know what the counselor is going to vote. You know, I'm just saying is that the high density is going to have a major traffic problems and major parking problems for anybody anywhere near that area. The next question is, since you're putting here, if it goes ahead, are you going to be lowering our taxes because we got high density housing close to us? I don't think so. You know, I know that the previous mayor and council, as was previously stated, that would not be developed. I know the town has to be progressive and look at different things of options. But Jason, when you get high density housing beside you, I think you'll be thinking, yes, I shouldn't have voted for this.
Okay, thank you, Wally. And
Can I ask a question? Wasn't there just about 2 years ago, I think, some land that was sold on the north side of town there? It was a farm, I think. Was that not sold to a residential developer?
it is, but they haven't moved forward, haven't put a piece of pipe in the ground. Oops, lost our screen.
Mike Babcock, 6026 44th Street, Crescent. Good evening. I don't have any prepared notes, but I was transferred here as with the RCMP in 2004. And one of the reasons, of course, that I picked the area where I bought was there were already a lot of RCMP members living in that area. So that meant, to me, low crime, quiet, peaceful, and we looked at other properties at that time in town, and we easily paid $10,000 or $15,000 more for our property because of the location. Because at the time, my real estate agent, who was a retired member who had served in Innisfail prior to my arriving there, assured me that that property, the council had said that would never be developed. I did know that it was zoned for residential, but at that time, even though it was hearsay by the real estate agent, as a retired member, I had a lot of confidence that he had good information about the status of that. So over the years, we've enjoyed that. We've enjoyed low crime. We've enjoyed peace and quiet. We've had the privilege of, obviously, the view and that sort of thing, and visiting with neighbors as they cycle by, walk their dogs, and they like that area because it's quiet and peaceful. And when somebody's had that for 20 years, it's very difficult to give that up or think about giving it up. And if that did happen, then I would be concerned about property values decreasing. And so, again, the public administration is very different than business administration. Business administration is about profit and the bottom line. Public administration is about a little bit about business, but a lot about keeping the people that live in your community satisfied. And I think everybody that lives in that general area, and I can speak not from limited personal experience. When my son lived in Calgary in high-density housing, we often had to park a block or 2 blocks away just to be able to visit them. And of course, I've seen that likewise in other communities where, so maybe to some people, parking sounds like a small thing, but in reality, it's not, because you have to have a place. And not, if you look at, you want a duplex, and the duplex has a rear garage, and they have lane suites, 2 people per residence, that's 8 vehicles to park in one lot, because not everybody uses their garage. So I'm not really in favor of that. I believe that I would see certainly an increase in traffic. Where the proposed street comes out, everybody turning right, those headlights are going to come right in my front window. So that creates a bit of a concern for me. We've been able to enjoy the view and enjoy the evenings there. But primarily I'm concerned about my personal property values and the property values of everybody that lives in that general area. And so part of that public administration is also to protect the assets that people that live there already have and not contribute to an economic loss because of that sort of program. Just in my personal experience after 30 years in the Mounted Police was that high-density housing does bring a lot of its own socioeconomic difficulties. Who knows what this proposal would actually end up being, but in the 20 years I've lived there, my car has only been prowled twice. And for the last 15 years, I worked for the city of Red Deer at the RCMP station, and I read police files there. And I can tell you that 2 car prowlings in 20 years is significantly less than high-density housing in Red Deer or low socioeconomic areas in Red Deer. So there's a number of factors that I think come into play here. I appreciate that people need a place to live and they need affordable housing, but part of the public administration is trying to solve that problem without adversely affecting the current residents. And it'd be easily to say that there's probably 40 or maybe 50 residents that would be affected by the parking or would possibly lose property values because of the high-density proposal. So that's why I'm against it, and thank you for your time.
Right, thank you. Anybody else would like to come up? Okay. Are there any further comments from administration at this time? No? And would council like to say anything? Okay, then if not, I will ask for a motion to close this public hearing, please.
Mayor Barclay, I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you very much. All in favor? All right, carried. Okay, we will move on to the rest of the agenda. And we'll move into 6.1, a request for decision on the CAO report, please.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. The CAO report submitted into your,
Sorry, do you just want to wait a second
Sure.
until, let people go and. There we go. Okay, sorry, carry
thanks, Mayor
on.
Barclay. The report submitted into your agenda package for your review. Any questions regarding the reports or anything else regarding administration operations, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Right, does anybody have any questions for CEO Becker? If not, I please have someone make the recommended motion. Councillor Maceros.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I'd like to move that council approves the Chief Administrative Officer report dated October 28th, 2024 as information.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. And we'll go into council action control. Just have to ask about second item on the, because I do that every month.
The question would be how I'm making out, Mayor Barkley, regarding engaging with TELUS. Just so happens, administration will be meeting with TELUS this week. This item has been on your action control for, almost just shy of a year. Having obviously some struggles with communication, and, but I'm happy to say that there is going to be an administrative conversation with TELUS this coming week, with the intent of bridging the conversation with council at a further time.
Right, thank you. Could I please have a motion to accept council action control as presented? Councillor Dunham,
Mayor Barkley will make that motion.
thank you. All in favor? All right, carried. And we will move into 7.1, disc golf back nine with Director Kennedy, please.
Thanks, Mayor Barkley. So last week, the Kinsman representative, Tim Ainscough and Donnie Hill, did present to council a review of the past timelines for the development of this disc golf project, as well as addressed a number of comments and questions from council. One of the outstanding items from council was to move the number 10 tee box farther away from the little gazebo. And we did provide a sketch of what was the intent for that move, which will be finalized formally with the agreement once the location is completed and yardage is recorded. So I guess without any further information provided to council, we are asking that council approve the amended agreement with the Kinsman Club for the additional 9 holes to the course.
All right, thank you. Could I please have someone make the recommended motion? Councillor Wing?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I move that council approves the amendment to the agreement with the Innisfail Kinsman Club for the development and maintenance of a disc golf course back nine.
Okay, does anybody have any comments to make? Councillor Dunham?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I just also want to thank Kinsman and Mr. Snyder for coming in and for all the dialogue that we've had towards this. I personally feel much more at ease with the direction that we've gone with my walkthrough of the site with Director Kennedy, with the adjustments to 10, and then also the offset of the tee boxes and that along the paths. I think that we're actually going to have a really great multi-use area there, and I'm looking forward to supporting this.
Thank you. Councillor Heistad?
Yeah, no, I think there was lots of a good discussion on this the past little while. Once again, the Kinsman has done a great job, the disc golf group as well, and bringing people into our community and being in the Upland Aspen area as well as Centennial Park is going to be another thing added to this great community. So thanks to everybody.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to be the pain as per usual, but I'm concerned still about hole number 12 and 14. I know I asked about it last week and was told that the basket and the concrete pad were going to sit just off the trail. Well, that trail is, I don't know, let's say maybe 5 feet wide, about 1.5 meters. It is a nature trail, and to me there's different trails in town. There's paved trails, and then there's space and nature and nature trails, and we have so little of it already, and that trail actually comes off of 50th Street or the parking lot and runs up on the east side of the paved trail that goes up through Centennial Park, and I honestly don't know how that is going to be a mixed-use trail going forward. I don't know if administration has any insight into that, but aesthetically, I don't think a basket and a cement pad tee box look great in that area, and I can't imagine people walking on that trail, which they do, and having disc golf being played at the same time. It's not like the other areas where they, we cross paths and that's fine, mixed use, people can yield and everything, but to me this trail is being taken away from the people that use that space for other things. Do you have any insight, Director Kennedy, as to how mixed use would happen on that trail? Because there is no space.
To Mayor Barkley, so I guess because of the size of the length of the holes, the sightlines are there to make sure that there is no interference if anybody does come on. So I guess we looked at that and gone through it a number of times with the Kinsman. So we feel comfortable that there would be lower risk of interference with people walking on the trail, being that the sightlines are quite short on the trail.
Okay, and I guess I would just add, people walk on nature trails for the quiet and stuff. So those are just my comments. Fully supportive of disc golf. I just wish those 2 holes could have found a different home someplace else. And also thanks for the move of number 10 eventually. That I think will help that as well. So any other comments? Okay, all in favor? Okay, and I'm going to oppose because of those 2 holes. Thank you. All right, and we will move on to 8.1, Canada Community Building Fund Memorandum of Agreement with Director Vickers.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. So yes, this is really just a report asking for council's direction to allow the chief elected official and the chief administrative officer to sign off on the new updated memoranda of agreement for the CCBF, or the Canadian Community Building Fund Agreement. So the Federal Canada Community Building Fund, or CCBF, annual grant provides predictable, long-term, stable funding for local governments such as Innisfail to help build and revitalize public infrastructure while creating jobs, addressing housing challenges, and fostering long-term prosperity. So the new agreement between Canada and Alberta covers the fiscal year 24 to 25 up to 2033 to 34. The agreement was signed by Canada and Alberta in July of 2024 and will continue to build on the commitment from the original 2005 agreement. CCBF is going to deliver over $2.4 billion each year to over 3,600 communities across the country. Communities select how they invest their own funds across 19 different project categories, and they are listed here below: drinking water, solid waste management, so on. So while the agreement itself did kind of get a major facelift with headings and restructuring the format, it is really basically the same agreement as before with one kind of large addition. So one of the strategic priorities for the federal government is housing. So a change in the new contract outlines a new requirement that must be met before all CCBF payments after 2024 are going to be issued. So local governments with a 2021 federal census population of 30,000 or more must also meet the following conditions. So they must submit a housing needs assessment, submission of the previous program year housing outcomes report, and certification of all previous program year housing outcomes report. Since we do not have 30,000 population, this doesn't qualify to us. Over the next 5 years, CCBF will invest over $1.3 billion in the province of Alberta, starting with $265 million in the 24-25 fiscal year. Funding distribution is adjusted every 5 years when new federal census data is available. So the allocation for fiscal years 24-25 through to 28-29 are based on the 2021 census data. And then the following years, 29-30 through 33 to 34, will be based on the 2026 census data when that comes available. Innisfail's allocation for 2024 is just over that $515,000. The allocation will not be released until this contract is signed and returned back to them. And then our allocations for 2025, the amounts have not yet been made public yet. So I'll take any questions that council may have at this time.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about this? I have a question, Director Vickers, on page 3 of 9 of the agreement, under local government responsibilities, section K. Just curious what that means. Is that like we have that clause on another agreement where we couldn't do anything with the property for 5 years?
Yes. So it's really just telling us, Mayor Barclay, that if we use this fund to buy an asset, and then within 5 years we sell that asset, we have to reinvest that asset in the same way the current dollars of this program are being spent. So it's not saying we can't sell it or retire that asset, but just any revenue we must treat the same.
Okay. I'm just not sure what we would be investing that money in, right, to sell and reinvest, but anyway, is what it is. Okay, any questions for anybody? No. All right, just have somebody make the recommended motion, please. Councillor Bates.
My computer failed, so I move the council authorizes the chief elected official and the chief administrative officer to sign the Canadian Community Building Fund Program Memorandum of Agreement.
All right, thank you. All in favor? All right, carried, thank you. Okay, we're going to move into 9.1 now with Manager Shaw.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So you have before you two motions related to the bylaw. You heard a lot in the public hearing component from the general public. What we are trying to provide council with this amendment is flexibility in the future. Now we have a developer who is interested in developing commercial or perhaps mixed commercial and residential on this property. The current zoning doesn't allow for that type of development. It allows for highway commercial development, which incorporates a wide range of development oriented towards motor vehicle traffic. So having looked at the proposed parcel and having worked with the developer who is interested in seeing development happening on this parcel, we have come up with the direct control district that allocates quite a number of different type of land uses that deal from the standpoint of highway commercial as well as local or neighborhood commercial up to and including mixed use. As I said before, we're trying to provide council flexibility for development on this land. It has been zoned as commercial for a very long time. The intent has always been to have some form of commercial. Over the years, there's been a number of proposals that just haven't come through. And it's quite possible that with this current one, you may have the same type of situation. But right now, we do have somebody who is interested in developing, at least for now, the residential component on the east side. And so administration would be working with that developer to try to minimize negative impacts on the associated neighborhood. And so we've tried to do that already as we move forward with any development proposal. The ideas that have been expressed today would be first and foremost in front of us in terms of trying to minimize those negative impacts. Nonetheless, what you have before you are two motions. One that suggests to give second reading, and two, to give third reading to the bylaw.
Great. Thank you, Manager Shaw. So this is just for the commercial parcel at the moment. Could I please have someone make the recommended motion? Councillor.
Yeah. Thanks, Mayor Barclay. I'll make the recommended motion that council grants second reading to bylaw number 1470-A81, being a bylaw to amend the land use zoning of municipality-owned property legally described as Plan 1822155, Block 85, Lot 14, located north of 42nd Street from Highway Commercial District to HWY-C to Direct Control District, DCD.
All right. Thank you. Does anybody have any comments? Councillor Maceros?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. What I got from the public hearing today is that one of the primary concerns was related to parking, among some other concerns. But my question is, do you know, Manager Shaw, offhand what the ratio of parking to units is? If you could just remind us of that?
I believe in the R3, or for an apartment building, it's 1-to-1 for apartments and parking stalls. However, again, as Manager Sharp mentioned, in a direct control district, the development permits for everything within this area will come to council for approval. So again, you're able to make those additional considerations. And it's not an administrative approval. It does come to council for consideration.
Okay, thank you. And just to follow up, I think it's clear that it's a balancing act, and there are pros and there are cons. And one of the strategic items that this council, our council, decided on right at the very beginning was to create some solutions around housing, and this is one of the solutions that we have come up with. It's not a solution for all of the problems, but it's a solution that we've agreed on, and I support moving ahead with this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Maceros. Councillor Heisted.
Yeah, I don't mean to ramble on to council and to the chamber, and I wish there was a few more people here. I think my comment would be back to our policing committee when we had that roundtable discussion with at the library there, and I believe there's opportunities not only if this moves forward and further development. This is a concept. We're here to listen to build the best concept for our community. And the unfortunate part is the rest of the gallery's not here today to hear us state where we're coming from. But I do believe what we're doing is the right thing. Being a former counselor, I'm just going to tell all my colleagues here today, when we brought forward a proposal to do a retirement type setting, people were still upset. People were upset that there was going to be potentially a gardening plot, which would add to the community. So, I believe that, the current council that we have before this community has the best interest for everybody, but it comes down to affordable housing. As to the policing and community policing, I'm going to be very upfront on the low income piece. My parents were teenage parents. They had to rent. They had to rent for a number of years before they owned a home. I was a kid that, my parents worked 2 jobs. They try to get through the tough times. So those individuals that have to live in lower income homes or rent, I find it, to me, it's disappointing, because when I look at our policing and our community policing initiatives, we didn't talk about more police in the community. We talked about how we can communicate with one another and be better neighbors. And I hope that we can convey that to the residents in that area. And I am part of that neighborhood. So that's what I wanted to bring forward to everybody today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bates.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. There is a blur between the two open houses, public hearings. And one comment was all about the taxes, and I remember appealing my own taxes somewhat a few years back, and taxes are a function of assessed value, which are determined by actual sales, and I think that's a reality that everybody has to embrace. And it's easy to get emotional about them, but they shouldn't go up or down pending the value of the home going up or down, and so that's one point. And the other is, I reflect when I took the oath of deputy mayor. It's basically the same oath that you take as a councillor, and you're making a decision based on the best interests of the town of Innisfail. And so I believe I can support this motion based on that. It's the best interests of the town of Innisfail. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I think just to build on what I've been hearing and relative actually specifically to this particular motion and this particular bylaw, we have been very deliberate in this community and with this council to grow our business sector and our industrial sector. and we're starting to see a lot of success. But what are we hearing as we work with those businesses and as we meet with school divisions, or if we go on business visits like we did last week? There is a sector in our community that needs affordable housing. And if I go back to a large body of work that I was a part of in Red Deer 20 years ago now, in thinking about who those people are that actually require affordable housing, well, we're talking about the EAs in our schools, and we're talking about the LPNs in our hospital, and we're talking about the bank tellers and the secretaries and the people that sell us our food in the convenience store, 7-Eleven, and we're talking about retail workers. Those are individuals that require assistance in finding an affordable place to live. And so I think the assumption that along with that group of people will come disarray and slums is really unfortunate. And I think that when I look at this particular district, as far as having some commercial as well as some a 4-story apartment building, that's not an array that is not found in other parts of our community. We have apartment buildings. I live in an area where we have a mobile home street right behind us. That's what communities are. These are the people in our neighborhood. And I feel really strongly that having highway commercial district will support employers and employees that are working in that vast industrial area that's growing like crazy, as well as provide opportunities for people that need to get out of their homes, and then therefore provide opportunities for people that are looking for those other kinds of housing. So I do support this. I think this is educated and quite intellectual development, and I'm proud to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dunham?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Yeah, it was wonderful to see so many people in and to hear the feedback, especially from some newcomers to town. The thing that I want to point out is that so much was based on the negative, what it could potentially take away, as opposed to the potential positive impacts that having a commercial space, for having an addition to a community. And for me, that's what I, as a few of my fellow council members have mentioned, we swore an oath to look and to represent the entire community, not just certain sectors. And I know that over the past couple of years, we have gone against administration's recommendations on a few things. So I don't believe that we just do something based on specifically, you know, what is our best feelings, but what is best for the community. I do support this. And like I said, it's not because of what I feel if I live there, but what is best for this town. And I feel that with all the studies that we've done and everything we've heard back, and for the breadth of research that has gone into trying to develop a concept for this community, and also the fact that it is a direct control district, so it all comes back to us. I think we're putting stopgaps in place to potentially negate any negative issues with it. So I support the motion.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I would just add, I spoke with somebody from the food bank today, and use at the food bank is up 22% year over year. So affordability is a challenge for a lot of people. And as Councillor Wing said, these are people in our community that need a place to live. We've seen where rents have gone the last while. We've seen where housing prices have gone, and it's difficult for people right now, and we are losing people. We can see that by the building of townhomes that are taking place at Red Deer County and Penhold, and they're gorgeous developments, and I think we have put a lot of thought into this over the last several months, and I appreciate everybody's comment today. I don't like to hear the stereotype around renters. Having been one myself at one point in time, that's usually how young people get started, is by renting a place. And likely, I don't know what the stats are, I think it's around 50% of household dwellers are actually renters. So it's sad to see them being stereotyped as some kind of a bad person. If there's likely people in the town that own their property, that the property's not very nice, but you know, we always hear reference to the east side of town, and I don't think it's necessarily the tenant's fault that maybe they have a landlord that won't look after their property for them. But I think we'll be very careful with this and conscientious when it comes to looking at development of this site and the discussions we've had. I mean, that's what I've heard from my council colleagues. So I'm quite confident that we will have something nice that going forward that, and maybe at some point we'll have a new build in town that will be, you know, something other than something that's 45 years old now, or almost 50 years old. So we're long past due for that. So anyway, we do have a motion on the floor, second reading on this bylaw. So all in favor? All right, carried. And I please have someone grant third reading. Councillor Ms. Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I move that council grants third reading to bylaw number 1470-A81, being a bylaw to amend the land use zoning of municipally owned property legally described as Plan 1822155, Block 85, Lot 14, located north of 42nd Street from Highway Commercial District, Highway-C, to Direct Control District, DCD.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, carried, thank you. And we'll move on to 9.2, request for decision on 1470-A83.
Mayor and council, this is a bylaw that deals with amending existing residential districts. So in summary, what is happening is that a portion of the R1B district that occupies this land is going to be changed to R2 as well as R3. And the R1C district is going to be changed over to R3. So the R3 accommodates townhouse type development, an area where we are lacking in the community. So it would serve as a buffer from the commercial development to the south to the residential to the north. The R2 accommodates like both detached dwellings as well as duplexes as well as secondary suites. There was a lot of talk about how crowded the concept appears to be, but if we look at just the dwellings alone, they basically match what the existing MDP calls for in terms of 16 dwelling units per gross hectare. So, you know, you could still see that type of development happening in this area, whether it would be like the R1B or the R1C. Whether or not those carriage homes were to be developed, that's a question that will have to be looked at in the future. And the reason I say that is that our preliminary discussions with the consultant has indicated somebody who is wanting to build like that type of dwelling unit, you're looking at 80 to 100,000 plus for that unit. So it's not something that you're going to do willy-nilly when you're already putting in a lot of money to develop your dwelling on that property. Finally, this is a concept. A lot of the points that have been raised today, as we move forward, I mean, we'll be looking at tweaking the plan itself so that it does take into consideration, and as it already has, the areas around it. We want to ensure that this is an area that people are proud to call home, and that you would be as happy to live beside it as if it were next door to you. So administration has provided you with 2 recommendations here, both of which are to move forward with the proposed amendment to the various land use districts. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Manager Shaw. Could I please have someone make the recommended motion? I don't know, do we need to read it all, or can we just say? give second reading to the recommended motion to bylaw. Maybe just read the first part of it. Or read the whole thing if you want.
Second reading to bylaw 1470-883 as presented.
All right, any discussion? Councillor Bates?
Your Worship, could we just scroll to the proposed, there was a proposed layout, I believe. Oops, that might have been it. Yeah, I'm not sure if my eyes will. No, did we not have one of the renditions of what it actually could look like? Like that had the, that
No,
last
go
one
back.
had the various zoning, but the conceptual, what it looked like with the carriage there, I guess. Okay. And I realize, it's just comment, I realize that moving it to direct control, we've already discussed that we would be approving whatever does come here. And I guess the one comment I'd have, I heard a lot of concern about the carriage houses or whatever, and down the road as we address that, we might consider, I think at one point we were looking at them on the west and not necessarily on the east.
Right.
And maybe, maybe some of those things come when we actually look at this thing, but just a comment.
Okay.
Do support the motion.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Dunham?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. As we previously mentioned, the blurred lines between the two, but once again, I'll just reiterate, there are a lot of people that potentially don't want to have a large yard, that want to downsize to that Georgian style. I've mentioned it before, I have a sister who moved to a smaller place in Edmonton where they have very little backyard because they don't have time to do that. So we have seniors in our community wanting to downsize, and as Mayor Barkley mentioned, moving to Red Deer and other places. This potentially allows them to stay in the community, stay close to their family, stay close to their roots. Once again, it's just a concept at this point in time, and I do understand the parking. And, I heard a comment a while back and I just maybe taken the wrong way, is that we don't have a right to a view. We don't have a right to all those things that we think we do, but what there is a right to is housing. And we need to find a way to accommodate that. And, we hear frequently, we heard at ABB News, not in my backyard, not in my backyard. And unfortunately, growth has to happen somewhere. And we have looked and looked and looked, and this is, I think we will all agree, one of the best options that we have for that growth that is necessary for this town. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Haslett?
Yeah, and if I could add to that, to councils, I see this property could be like the property near, right across from Centennial that had taken about 15 years to develop. I think there's an opportunity here, but it's not gonna be overnight, this opportunity for us. So I support the motion. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Maceros?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I just wanted to also thank administration for the report that you put together, because I think it addressed a lot of misinformation and mythology around the property behind the houses that are already there, property in question right now. So thank you for that.
Okay, Councillor Wing?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. We all live in houses that didn't exist before. We all live in places in our community that didn't have housing in them before. So our house was built in 1978. We lived 3 blocks from the school campuses, and it was a farm before that house was built. There was a farm there. So, when we moved in 1992, right at the end of our street, we lived on a dead-end road, and right at the end of our street, there was about 4.5 acres of treed land, just sitting on the north side of the auction market. And the kids played in it. It was a recreational piece. You could, trek through there. You could do all kinds of things in there. It was a great place for kids to play. But we came home from work one day in August of the year 2000, and the trees were all gone because a local individual who was well-known, high esteemed in this community, had bought the land and was building a subdivision in it. So we came home literally from work and the trees were gone. And that was the day that the subdivision of Sunridge was born. And so in that 24 years, we've had single-family dwellings, there's multifamilies, there are seniors, some people have retired off of farms, there's seniors living in there, there's families, there are children that have been born in that subdivision that now have graduated from high school in Innisfil. They've lived their entire life in that subdivision. There's a playground in that subdivision. I guess my point is yes, having a place to live is something that's important. It's important for our community. It's important for our residents. And change is hard. I understand that. It's hard. But I think if we're conscientious about it, if we have expectations, as Mayor Barkley said, we have areas of the community that have unfortunate situations that need to be dealt with, but don't hold the people that live in those places necessarily accountable to that. And we will get that part figured out. But a new subdivision in our community just gives people a place to call home and write their own stories. And so I will definitely support this motion.
Okay, thank you. And just add a couple more comments and bringing in a disc golf conversation. Just from what the person said to me, it has nothing to do with disc golf, but we were talking about that person happens to be a walker on nature trails and wasn't thrilled about this. And I said, what you should do is like send council an email and let them know, let everybody know, like not just me. But their answer to me was, well, nobody's going to listen to a person like me. And I said, well, I think they will, but it's sad to hear that commentary that, oh, I'm not important enough or I don't have stature in this community that anybody's going to listen to me. And I know change is really difficult. I heard the comments today and I understand completely, but I hope that there will be confidence in administration and this council to do this properly. And the concept, and it's only a concept at this stage, what we've seen are very nice homes. They're older adult homes for people to downsize into. They're nice townhomes. I think parking, we need to take a serious look at that and make sure that that's not going to be an issue, because we don't drive small cars in this environment in central Alberta. Typically it's SUVs and trucks. So we need to really be aware of that. And so, we might have to check density a bit, but I just think that every employee that doesn't live here is spending their paycheck elsewhere, and they're not supporting local business. And when we go to business visits, we hear employers that are having challenges hiring people because people can't find a place to live here. So, we're 8,000 people now. Like I said, when I grew up here, it was 2,300, and there was absolutely nothing west of the school, nothing. It was bush and a couple of farms out there, and you look how that whole area has been developed today. So, things progress, whether we want them to or not, and if we didn't, we'd still be the 2,300 person town that it was when I was young. But I think administration has done a ton of work on this. We have some real expertise within administration doing this work, and I think the design of the homes that we've seen are excellent. It's something new, it's something modern, and these other boxes we can certainly make sure that we look at and that we're very engaged in this, which I know we will be. So I guess we have a motion, so I'll call anybody in favor of the motion. Okay, carried unanimously. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to 9.3 with Manager McKenzie.
Mayor Barkley, you'll require a third reading as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Consideration.
Thought. Yeah, I'm sorry, too. There is a lot going on. Third reading? Okay, Councillor Bates.
I'll move that council grants third reading to bylaw 1470 A-83.
Thanks, got ahead of myself. Any more comments? Okay, all in favor? All right, carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we will move on to 9.3 with community services. And I'd ask Manager McKenzie to come up and we'll go over some policy, please.
So just here today to bring forward the Recreation, Culture, and Tourism Grant Policy, the Sport Tourism Grant Policy, the Sponsorship and Request for Funding Policy, and a revised Facility Allocation and Booking Policy for council approval. So as we discussed last week, just through discussion with the Community Services Standing Committee and council, it was determined that a review of our current community grant policy was required just to provide some further clarification to address requests from community groups and organizations for grant funding, sponsorship requests, and waiving and/or discounting facility rental fees. So we reviewed existing policy, created 2 new policies, and updated 2 others, which will replace the existing community grant policy and support some of the desired outcomes. Draft policies were brought forward last week during October 21st A&P meeting for your review. After council discussion, changes were made to previously reviewed draft policy. The draft policy for the Recreation, Culture, and Tourism Grant Policy remained unchanged and stayed as presented. The edits made to the Sport Tourism Grant Policy, we added in the grant funding may be provided in the form of check or in-kind support, which would allow us to support some of those facility rentals, permits, etc. And then under the approval process heading, and then the draft sponsorship and request for funding policy was edited to require that all requests be submitted at least 45 days. It was previously 30 before the event to allow sufficient time for review and approval. And I won't read through all of the policy stuff again unless anyone has any questions or wants some further clarification on anything.
Okay, thank you, Manager McKenzie. Could I please have someone make the first motion? Councillor Dunham.
I move that council approves policy 2024-009, recreation, culture, and tourism policy as presented.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any comments?
Can I just do a general?
Of course.
Well done. Thank you. Thank you for all of these and for making our lives so much easier. I know, like I said at the AMP meeting, I know how much work it was, and I know we're all a little less hair and a little grayer because of it. But thank you. I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate for the people that are going to be sitting on that committee for years in the future. So thank you.
Okay, any further comments? No, all in favor? All right, carry it unanimously. And please have someone read the second motion. Councillor Wing.
I move that council approve policy 2024-007, sport tourism grant policy as presented.
Okay, any questions? All in favor? Okay, carry unanimously. And third motion, please, Councillor Heisler.
That council approves policy 2024-8, sponsorship and request for funding policy as presented.
All right, thank you. Any questions? All in favor? All right, unanimous, thank you. And the next motion, Councillor Maceras.
That council approves policy 2024-006, facility booking and allocation policy as presented, and repeals policy 2021-006, facility booking and allocation policy.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor? Okay, unanimous. And the last motion to repeal, Councillor Bates.
I'll move that council repeals policy 2020-003, community grant policy.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, carry unanimously. Thank you, Manager McKenzie. Okay. And we'll move on to 9.4 with Director Jenkins and the U18 hockey.
All right, so we're looking for a motion for council to provide a letter of support to Innisfail Minor Hockey, confirming the availability of the red and blue ice surfaces for March 27th through 30th U18 Hockey Provincial Championship if their hosting bid is successful. So the U18 hockey team is preparing to submit a bid to Hockey Alberta to host the 2025 Provincial Division Championships. The tournament will bring 7 teams from across the province to compete, and bid submissions will be approved prior to January 1st to allow communities to prepare for the event. So a letter of support requesting confirmation of the ice availability as well as that the standard rates for booking will apply has been requested from the group. So our newly updated facility booking and allocation policy continues to outline that requests to maintain ice beyond the standard schedule for hosting provincials or higher level tournaments must be submitted by December 1st, and that's intended to allow our dry surface users adequate time to make appropriate arrangements for the impact for their usage during that month of March. So yeah, looking for a motion if council has any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Director Jenkins, could I please have someone make a motion?
Mayor Barkley, I move that council provides a letter of support to the Innisfil Minor Hockey Association confirming availability of the red and blue ice surfaces for the March 27th to 30th U18 Hockey Provincial Championships if their hosting bid is successful.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Maceros?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I just have a question about, I don't have offhand what dates the trade show is, the Chamber of Commerce trade show, and if that's been discussed.
So typically the trade show is the first weekend in April. I'm not sure if they've confirmed dates for this year. I know the last time I met with the chamber, they were, looking at where other events in the region fall, but this would be the weekend before that, so essentially ice would be removed during that week. Be a little tighter than normal, but.
Thank you. Councillor Bates?
Yeah, I guess I feel I need to do my due diligence, but, and I realize we can't predict ice rentals. And of course, I guess we would have the revenue of the tournament itself. The only question I have is if the ice wasn't used, so that would be the worst case scenario, do we have a feeling of what our financial exposure would be?
So in terms of the loss of the dry surface usage?
No, the actual cost to keep the ice there.
So, in terms of utility costs, then you're looking at?
Pretty much, because
Okay.
I'm assuming if it's not used, then you don't have to flood it.
Yeah,
But,
Todd gave me a hint, so I got some numbers for you. So primarily power usage is the biggest thing with maintaining the ice. So there is some variation depending on weather. If it's warmer out in March, usage would be higher. But typically, we see when we go from February to March, when we take the one surface out, we see about a 30% decrease in our utility rates, our utility consumption with that removal of the ice surface. And then when we move into April, when both surfaces are out, it's about a 75% decrease if you go from February to April. I wasn't able to do the financials on it because our power contract is quite convoluted, and 1 month we have distribution fees and then the next month we don't, and it kind of goes back and forth. But we would see that those rates sort of mirror the February rates, so you'd see that sort of
Can you
30%.
characterize it as minor or significant? Or just curious.
I can tell you, so, I don't have our power. So March of last year, our actual power costs were $6,100. And then our April power costs, yeah, again, it's not a nice line with the way our power's charged and we get credits back, so.
Okay, but it's not,
Yeah,
okay,
but
it's not
again,
monumental.
I went through the invoices and it's, we get a credit
And-
back in April for the hedge that they bought.
And hopefully we could rent some ice. Thank you.
Yeah, and I do anticipate Thrive particularly will typically pick up spring ice as much as they can. And then depending on playoffs, it gives minor hockey a little bit more flexibility as they go in, because there's always a push from minor hockey for us to leave the red in a little bit longer than we do. Because they start to get really excited that we're gonna go deep in the playoffs, and then it hasn't materialized yet in the last few years, but we'll see.
Councillor Hystad?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention to Councillor Maceros that the chamber was looking at early April because there was no Allen Cup for this year, so that's what I knew. But and I encouraged them to call the town right away, so we weren't aware of the potential with the U18 team. Just so FYI, thanks.
So Director Jenkins, if baseball and lacrosse, I guess that's mostly dry surface users, they have to go elsewhere, like a Dome and Red Deer or like where would they go?
So Bowden has dry surface.
Okay.
They use the Collicutt Center. I
Okay.
know baseball does through the winter. Baseball may have the option of utilizing the gyms at the school.
Okay.
Because they'll use wiffle balls or whatever. Kristen's gonna check. Lacrosse has had some issues at the school in terms of them not using the proper non-damaging balls and things when they've used it in the past. So whether the schools would be open to lacrosse again is a conversation we'll have to have.
But there are options then, like Bowden
There
and
are
whatnot.
other,
Yep. Okay.
other facilities where they can look at dry surface in that. I know they are usually quite eager to get going, but.
I think it's great to have a provincial tournament coming in and great for the business community as well. So we have a motion to approve this. All in favor? All right, unanimous, thanks. And correspondence and information. CEO Becker on the passenger rail, did you want a motion to, like, I know that you're considering going to this and.
Mayor Barkley, just for conversation with the council, this forum is booked same date as your budget meeting. I would consider your budget meeting to be priority. If council wishes for me to attend, or administration certainly could do that, I would recommend to register with the understanding that budget meeting is priority, meaning that's administration may not attend, but certainly have to, your guidance if you wish for administration to attend. I don't really need a motion to that.
Okay.
Just understanding that administration may not attend just due to conflicting.
Yep, no, fair enough. If you can go, just, so full disclosure, I also was invited through CAPE as a chair of CAPE, and same thing, certainly budget will take precedent over that, but we'll see when the time comes, so. Councillor Bates.
Yeah, just, it's a flashback of my life. I remember my first term, I think, there was one of these. I personally went and made a submission, not on behalf of the town. It was kind of open to the public, and I think we'll all hear about it. It's not, it's not like, it'll get well publicized too, so if we were to sign up and then not go, you'll still,
No,
you'll get all the,
there'll be lots of people there, and there's
Get all
a
the
full
news.
agenda that's been made, so not too worried about getting there or not, but. Okay, we'll just have a motion to accept the correspondence as information. Councillor Dunn.
Mayor Barkley, I'll make that motion.
All in favor? Perfect. And then we'll do council reports with Councillor Hystad.
Yeah, I'll just move my report, my update. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Dunham.
Mayor Barkley, my report is in there. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maceros.
Thank you. I was away, so nothing to report.
There are lots to report, but Councillor Wing.
My report is included, Mayor Barkley.
Thank you. And Councillor Bates.
mine went in Friday morning instead of Friday afternoon.
Oh, gosh, gold star. Okay, all right. My report's in there. A lot of it's a little bit of a copy paste, quite a bit of it from the SRD meetings. There's some important things in there, especially the Innisfail Emergency Storage Pond information. And I've also asked CEO Becker to invite CEO of SRD to a future council meeting at some point. So give us an update on a few other things. Councillor Bates.
Yeah, from your report, I haven't done it yet, but I will bring that meeting that you refer to, Darwin, to Water Commission's attention, because I haven't heard about it there yet, but I will definitely bring that forward, and,
Okay, thank
yeah,
you.
thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. Open mic? Nope. And upcoming events, just have somebody make a motion that we accept the upcoming events as information, please.
I'll move.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? All right, carried. And we'll adjourn this meeting at 5:09. And- So just clicked. And we'll just take a quick break and come back for the next one. Organizational meeting. I'll call that to order at 5:15. And are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? No. Could I please have someone make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
I'll move.
Thank you, Councillor Maceras. All in favor? Okay, and 3.1, we'll just kind of zip by that. Next week when you come in, we'll have some probably new seating arrangements for the final year. Pardon? I said surprise. Oh, yeah, surprise. Musical chairs, huh? And then 3.2, we'll go over council member appointments. One thing I just want to point out on the joint use, that terms of reference calls for 2 councillors, not a councillor and an alternate. So I think Councillor Bates is the alternate. Just trying to find it on the list. Where's, yeah, joint use. We have Councillor Heistad and Bates, so we need to take the alternate out. Well, that's what the terms of reference says. It's always been that and an alternate, but that's not what the terms of reference says, so.
Joint use agreement. There's 2 committees. One is a governing committee, I think that's 2. Then the operational committee.
Somewhere I read recently that it was 2, I think, before the Red Deer Catholic School Board meeting. Likely in the document, Director Jenkins, that we were given for that meeting, I guess. That's what I'm talking about.
You're correct. So yes, 2 councillors and the CAO, and then 2 board members.
Okay. Okay, so we can just make an amendment to that, and everybody's okay with everything else. We talked about that before, so I'll just have a motion, please, that we, with the amendment to the joint use.
Make a motion that we accept it with the amendment.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dunham. All in favor? All right, carried. And then,
Mayor Berkeley, I'd suggest next one will be, you need to go in camera to
yeah,
discuss the
that's what I was going
application.
to
so
ask.
we
Yeah,
can-
okay. All right, motion to go in camera, please.
I'll make that
Councillor
motion, Mayor Barkley.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? have the motions to, so we'll have the first motion for the Community Economic Development Advisory Group. So that's Tom Horlick and Pat Bourne. Somebody like to make that motion, please?
Mayor Barkley, I would move the appointment of Patricia Bourne and Tim Van Horlick to the Community Economic Development Advisory Group.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Carried. And then the next motion, we have Amy Lee Walker, Carla Hoffman, Wally Gantz, and Zita Kennedy. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. Have somebody please make that motion.
Mayor Barkley, I'll move those 4 individuals to be part of the Community Service Standing Committee.
Perfect. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And then our last appointment, Councillor Hystad.
I'll make that a motion, emotion. Thanks.
Okay, so we're, that's for Sarah to go on FCSS. Okay, all in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you. Okay, sorry. Okay, and we'll move into 3.4, Council Procedure Bylaw Update.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Barkley. Just looking for council guidance, support in adjusting or amending your procedure bylaw, just to make it current, I guess. Some of the suggested changes is to change some of the wording, language, structure of the bylaw, just for clarity and ease of understanding in relation to council and the committees. Just really changing some of the language. Also to include a section dealing with process of council members to submit written reports. So this is then gives you some guidance on what does that mean in future councils too, if you wish to make that part of your procedure bylaw. Just a little bit of structure there. I'm looking to either some guidance on a little bit more structure on delegations, some procedures more specifically. A suggestion would be to consider removing open mic, and if you don't wish to proceed into that space, then to develop again procedures and what that looks like. Is talked about just loosely administratively to have you register, but then you're getting really into delegations, so it's could be conflict, but certainly up to me, not up to me. My recommendation, as per a couple years ago, at some point you may want to consider eliminating open mic, just due to the changes in some of the engagements you're receiving. But again, I respect the fact that you may not want to at this point of your term. So yeah, looking for some feedback there. Best practices is to have independent bylaws in terms of references for your committees. If you look in your procedure bylaw right now, you have a couple there, but it's just clear and easy to understand that each committee would have it's under a bylaw. That's just a best practice that Municipal Affairs put through several years ago. Electronic meeting requirements. Yeah, there is some reference in the MGA that to allow for electronic engagement with meetings, but just the reference in that procedural bylaw will help cross-reference that, the MGA. Mayor's ex officio, which is standard, and right now the procedure bylaw does not indicate that. Right now, really council is encouraged to go to any meeting, but typically a mayor's identified ex officio role on different committees. Yeah, so it's really something there if you wish to add ex officio within the procedure bylaw. So yeah, just looking for your guidance, conversation regarding some of those suggested changes, and whatever you wish to advance for further review, then we start that legwork based on your conversation.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any comments? Councillor Hystad?
Yeah, I've been thinking about the open mic piece, and I know it's been around probably 15, 18 years kind of thing, but it may be easier for us to have a delegation, so there's a process there for a delegation to come forward to have that discussion. We've had a few different groups come in and present at the end of the, and there's probably 3 or 4 just in regards to issues that are going on in the community, and probably be best suited for more structure around that. That's how I'm looking at it.
Thank you. Councillor Dunham?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Yes, as far as the open mic, I'd like to see it go, and I'd like to see it in more people coming as delegation. That allows any future people sitting on this council to be in advance notice of what's going to happen, and we're not caught off guard by anything, and we actually have time to prepare. So if we have an occasion where potentially we need a little bit more research done, we have that time to be able to answer and to put our best face forwards. As far as the council reports, yeah, I think having it in there provides a little bit more, especially an example, a little bit more clarity for councillors going forward.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Wing?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Yeah, I absolutely support getting rid of the open mic and promoting the use of our delegation format. Certainly lots of municipalities are moving away even from delegations, and I don't support that. I think the community should have the opportunity to speak to us, but I think having that process might help. And if nothing else, might help clear up any misunderstandings people have around what that process looks like. So if they're going to get mad, they might be mad when they talk to Todd, and that would be better than being mad at us.
Sure.
So, the other thing that I wanted to raise, and it's not a concern, and I'm not unsupportive, but adding in the mayor as ex officio voting for committee meetings, is it a part of our culture, or as a governing board, then, that we accept committee reports and we support them when we receive them? We don't tend to have a lot of discussion. Has council ever voted against a committee report? And having more, like having the mayor involved in voting is good, but it's really good. But I do know from past experience myself that as soon as the board chair or the mayor weighs in at a committee, everybody, that's where it stops. And so I just wonder if it's ever happened at the council table where there's actually been a debate around the contents of a committee report before we actually accept it.
A couple things, and I'm not sure I'll grab a bunch of your comments, Councillor Wing. I think the context of using mayor's ex officio as a voting could be, if it's not using the realm of an empty space, or almost like a alternate. If you're stacking votes, it would not meet your values as a council. You would get in a lot of trouble in that regard. I have witnessed, I don't think here so much, but I've witnessed where a committee made a recommendation, has advised you to council, and the council has worked against that recommendation based on additional information or not fitting, really not having all the information. A committee would not have all the information council would have. It can go off not well, but there's often a backup response to that. But it's really, they're advising you based on the information they have. But it's ultimately your decision. You don't just rubber stamp it. But I've witnessed that before. I think, did I answer your question?
Yeah, I just to be clear, I wasn't suggesting vote stacking or anything nefarious was going on.
Yeah.
Just for clarity, it's just a matter of saying, like, have we ever had a situation where we've said, no, we don't agree, and so we're not approving that?
No, I just asked the ex officio, that's currently on, that's already being done through many committees outside of this group, like in this council, right? That's what I understood when you were saying that, like other communities, it's following the MGA, right?
Yeah, it's a standard.
So basically, if we're gone, Mayor Jean can jump in any committee and look after us, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, okay. That's what I understood. Yeah.
Yeah, I think open mic could go. I don't see a lot of value in it. Somebody might, stand up and pat us on the back or whatever, but it's really not, I don't think it's really moving good conversations forward. So I would rather see people come as a delegation. That way they have to go through you and, as Councillor Dunham said, you kind of know what's coming at that point in time, and I think maybe we would have avoid some of the deep sky things that went on, of course, and that was, so yeah, and the rest of it is fine. I would like to see you do some background work and bring something forward to us that's a little more modern and up to date than what we have right now. And I think even like around committee reports, I think that's important. They're not quite hitting the mark with what I kind of foresaw when we said, well, let's do committee reports, because I want to hear what's going on committees. I know what everybody's doing. I can see that on upcoming events, but I want to hear what's going on at the committee and being more informed that way. So I would like, yeah. Okay. So you want a motion? All of it?
I think you can generalize, Mayor Barkley, just direct administration to provide, to research and provide an updated procedural bylaw for consideration.
Okay, thank you. Would somebody like to make that motion, please? Councillor Wing?
What he said, please. Yes, I make that motion.
All right, thank you. All in favor? All right, carried. That's it. And we'll adjourn at 5:34.